All right, so in this video, we're going to be going over how to use the ClearRoads economic value tool. So on the first page here, we have the instruction guide that goes over just the basic information on how to use this tool, from an overview to the steps it would take to what the colors of each of these tabs mean. So these can be gone over in order to determine where everything is. So here we have the main area of the tool. This is called the data entry form. And this is where you're going to be inputting all information related to the scenarios that you'll be using. And as you can see in the first input here, you'll have your scenario. This is where you'll plug in a scenario code, and this will be the unique identifier that is submitted for each of these values that are placed into all these different inputs here. So for this one, for example, we have something called example 1, and this will be the scenario code. You can use these buttons here to interact with the scenario code. And this will add the new scenario to the scenario database. This will load the scenario code that you have already submitted before for previous inputs. And then this clear all button will clear out all the information in all the inputs except for the value in the scenario input here. So for example, we have an example 1, and I've already submitted information into each of these tables previously, so I can show you this. So we use the load scenario button. And as you can see, it fills in each of these tables with information that is specifically saved to each of these individual databases. So let me give you an example of that. For example, here we have the weather distributions and durations, and we have these percents. So we have the weather percents here, and these are saved with example 1 with these values. So that's why they will be brought back into this table here. And so let's go over submitting these informations to the database and how to get them in here. In this table here specifically, you'll see that this column has to add up to 100% because you're going to be inputting the different percents that you expect to receive for these event types per season and the percent speed when not treated. Once you've inputted these in, you have to fill out these tables completely. Then you can simply just click the submit button here. And then this information will be submitted to the database, and you can go ahead and just click the go to database button here, and it'll take you there, and you'll see that it's been submitted. Keep in mind that whenever you submit information for a scenario code, which is linked to the one that you have typed in here currently, it will overwrite the information that's already displayed there for this scenario code. So for example, if there was another scenario code for example 2, then there wouldn't be anything, it wouldn't overwrite this example 2 scenario since you're currently submitting for example 1. So we can go over a little bit of the other inputs here. We'll see that we have the event type and number of events per year and average span of per event hour. You'll notice that these have the same variables here as the previous input, but in this note here, you'll see that if you input the event types into this column here and you fill out this table completely, then the percentage of these events per year times the average span will be overriding these percentages here. So for the sake of checking it, these percentages were the same. So 2 times 12.5, 25, and all this added together essentially would equal to the same total hours that was, or the same percentage that's shown here, essentially. But yeah, so you can use the percent per season here, or if you use the event types here, then you could just type in these values, and then these are the ones that will be used instead of this percent per season. But this percent speed reduced when not treated still needs to be filled out for these event types. This is the part that's optional in this table, essentially. And then over here, as you can see, we have these purple columns. And this was in the instruction guide in the front, but purple columns are columns that you don't manually fill in yourself. So the way this works is all you have to do is you'll simply just choose the state that you want to have a prediction for their total event hours and total days of events. So for the sake of argument, let's go ahead and do Colorado. And let's say they have an AW SSI of 300 and their average hourly rate for winter maintenance workers is $35. You can go ahead and click this calculate button here, and it will provide you a total estimate of the event hours for the whole state and the total days of events for the whole state. So what's happening here is essentially you can use this value. Like if you submit this value here and you get these total event hours, you will not need to fill in this table here, but you will still need to fill in this table up here, essentially. And now for a couple of these other inputs, these are all just basic inputs. You just input in your network area description and then these other values here. Input 4, similar things. Oh yeah, and of course you can add and delete last rows here. So you can add in multiple values at once. And then we also have some descriptions here if you aren't sure on how to use or aren't sure what some of these variables are. Then we have discount rate, software data subscription, and then we have another one down here, which is the input 7 cost estimates. So you can either input this value here and get a direct annual cost estimation for the whole state, or you'll see in this black box, you have these input variables here, and you can input for these ones as well. So for example, we can do something very similar for Colorado, and what do we say before? 300. So we'll go ahead and do that again, 300. And then this will give an estimated direct annual cost for the whole state, which encompasses these input values here. So after that, we can, if you choose not to input this one and you want a more accurate depiction based on your own values rather than estimated values from previous year's data, then you can go ahead and type it in manually. And the way that these tables work here is that you can either, if you know the value of your, your labor from employees and things like that, then you can just simply type in the annual cost here. You can still use these identifiers so it's clear when it gets saved to the table, but you can just simply type in this cost here rather than the total hours per type of employee and the average cost per hour. If you know these values and don't know this value, then you can plug it in here and leave this one blank. Or if you already know this value, then you can just plug it in here and leave these blank here and then submit it. And that will be good enough too. It's the same thing for the fuel. You could either put it here or here. Same thing for de-icing material, either put it here or here. And make sure to submit all this information after typing it in, of course. And you can always check to see if your information is typed in for the scenario or like what is in there by, once again, using the load scenario button up here. And that'll immediately put everything into the table that you've already submitted. And then we have some other basic inputs here for training, infrastructure, storage, environment, other crashes. Also for the percentage of vehicles exposed to icy or wet roads, the 2 cells must equal to 100 here. It's good to keep that in mind. And yeah, so now we get down here to what this tool is made for, and this is the result scenario. And as you can see, there's a drop down here as well. And you can go ahead and click example 1. This drop down, of course, gets updated the same with the drop down we saw up here with the scenario in the scenario tab or scenario input, where when you add this new scenario, it will get added to the drop down. And this drop down is linked to this one as well. So we'll go ahead and put in example 1. These are all the values that we have saved in here, and it will run the calculations for us. So we can go ahead and click calculate all, and it'll fill in the budget projection, and it will give you a cost breakdown based on the values you have typed in. So if anything seems off here, you can go ahead and use this to review. Okay, so after that, it runs all these different calculations and you'll get all your values here and you have some descriptions on what each of these mean exactly. And of course, you can use the Save Results button here. It's similar to the Submit buttons. And as you can see in the database, it will get saved here and you can review it at any time in the Results tab. Okay, so that goes over the main functionality of the tool here in the data entry form. After that, we have what's called the summary page. The summary page is a way to just simply visualize some of the values that you saw previously in the results table, and you can compare it directly to other scenarios that you have saved as well. So for example, if we put scenario 1 also with the linked or this list that is linked to the results and scenario input, you can go ahead and press load data and it'll create a pie chart of the annual cash flow cost versus the annual cash flow benefits. And if you had other examples loaded or scenarios loading in, then you would be able to compare it directly and you can see which ones are most beneficial, and you can have up to 3 in here. Lastly, we have the direct cost analysis page, and here you will see that what this does is it's very similar to the data entry form and how you input data. You can input the year, and this is the direct cost values. So we have the years, and yeah, you can put in the type of employee, total hours, and an average cost. And it's the same thing here where this is going to be calculating from these values here, or it can take a or it can take a direct input if you were to place it in here. And then same thing for these ones down here. You can add and delete rows as needed. And then what you can do is after you've added and deleted whatever rows you needed and you've inputted the costs for the various years, then you can go ahead and click graph direct costs and it will make it automatically pop up right here. And it will have the different values for each input here. It will mark the minimum and maximum, and it will compare them to each other, and each are color coded. So this is another comparison tool you can use. All right, lastly, we have, I want to go over how to update the state data that is being used here in the data entry form in order to create these predictions in these purple columns here. If you want to update your state data in order for it to reflect most accurately, for next year's data or the previous year's data, and it's not currently in there, this will be in the hidden tab here. So to unlock the hidden tab, you can go ahead and right click any tab. You can click on hide and you can go ahead and click state data. And this brings up a new tab here. And what's happening here is essentially we have all the different states, their year, and AWSSI, expenditures, labor costs, workers, number of workers, and that's the labor in-house plus the labor private, essentially. So these are all values that will need to be entered if you wish to update those predictions. And how that would be done is you can simply scroll down to the bottom here and you'd be able to see the bottom of the table. As you can see, I already added one as well as an example. But what you do is you can right click anywhere in the table, you can click insert and then table row below. And you would go ahead and just type in whatever state you're adding to. So since we're working in Colorado, let's say Colorado, and somehow we had the new 2025 data when it does come out, you would go ahead and just type in your AWSSI, it being, say, 400, and then you would type in all these other values here. And then after you type in these values, you can go ahead and use these 3 buttons here. And this would calculate the new slope and intercept for expenditures, which would be this one right here, the slope and intercept for labor costs, which would refresh this one right here. And then you have the slope and intercept for the number of workers, which would be this one right here. And these values here are all getting used for these calculate buttons, and this is how the predictions are formed using the slopes and intercepts found there. So that's why if you want your state to have the most accurate predictions, then this table needs to be updated, and then these buttons just need to be pressed once in order to reflect those changes. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers most of the functionalities of the tool.